Have you ever stopped and asked yourself what consciousness actually is? The strange part is, no matter how advanced science becomes, nobody can fully explain why you are aware of anything at all. Thoughts, emotions, memories, even the feeling of you, all of it exists. But where does it come from? This is one of the deepest mysteries in human existence, the mystery of consciousness nobody can solve. Today we will talk about the mystery of consciousness nobody can solve. So before we start, make sure to hit the like button and subscribe to my channel. 1. The question that exists inside every thought consciousness is the one mystery that every human being directly experiences, yet no one fully understands. It is the fact that there is something it feels like to be you right now, reading these words, thinking thoughts, and being aware of your surroundings. Unlike other scientific problems, consciousness is not something distant or external. It is the very thing doing the observing. This creates a unique paradox. We can study the brain, map neurons, measure electrical activity, and observe behavior, but none of these explain the subjective experience of awareness itself. The question is not just how the brain works, but why any of it should feel like something from the inside. Why is there an inner world of thoughts and sensations, instead of just mechanical processes? This gap between physical processes and subjective experience is often referred to as the hard problem of consciousness, and it remains one of the most difficult questions in science and philosophy. The mystery persists because consciousness is both the most familiar thing in existence and the least explainable. Everyone has it, yet no one can fully define what it is or how it arises. This contradiction is what makes consciousness one of the deepest unsolved problems in human understanding. 2. The brain as a physical system. Modern neuroscience has made remarkable progress in understanding the brain. Billions of neurons communicate through electrical and chemical signals, forming complex networks responsible for perception, memory, emotion, and behavior. Scientists can observe which areas of the brain activate during specific tasks, such as seeing a face, solving a math problem, or feeling fear. Brain imaging technologies like fMRI and EEG allow researchers to map activity patterns with increasing precision. From a purely physical standpoint, the brain can be described as an incredibly sophisticated biological computer. It processes information, responds to stimuli, and adapts through learning. However, even with this detailed understanding, something crucial remains unexplained. The brain's physical processes describe what happens, but not why it feels like something to experience those processes. For example, when neurons fire in response to seeing the color red, science can describe the mechanism in detail, but it cannot explain why that activity produces the subjective experience of redness. This gap between objective description and subjective experience is at the heart of the mystery. Even if every neuron in the brain were mapped perfectly, the question of consciousness would still remain. 3. The hard problem of consciousness. Philosopher David Chalmers famously introduced the distinction between easy problems and the hard problem of consciousness. The easy problems involve explaining cognitive functions, such as perception, memory, attention, and decision-making. These can, in principle, be solved through neuroscience and computational models. The hard problem, however, is fundamentally different. It asks why and how physical processes in the brain give rise to subjective experience at all. Why does information processing produce an inner world of feelings, sensations, and awareness? Why is there something it is like to be a conscious organism? This question does not seem to be answerable by traditional scientific methods alone, because it is not about behavior or function, but about experience itself. Even if we built a perfect simulation of the human brain, it is still unclear whether that system would be conscious or merely behave as if it were. This uncertainty highlights the unique nature of consciousness as something that cannot be observed from the outside, in the same way as other physical phenomena. The hard problem suggests that consciousness may require a fundamentally different kind of explanation than anything currently provided by science. 4. Theories that attempt to explain consciousness. Despite the difficulty of the problem, many theories attempt to explain consciousness. One of the most widely discussed is physicalism, the idea that consciousness arises entirely from physical processes in the brain. According to this view, consciousness is an emergent property, meaning it appears when a system becomes sufficiently complex. Just as wetness emerges from water molecules or temperature emerges from particle motion, consciousness emerges from neural activity. However, critics argue that this explanation does not fully address the subjective aspect of experience. Another theory is panpsychism, which suggests that consciousness may be a fundamental property of the universe, existing in some form, even at the level of particles. According to this view, complex consciousness arises from the combination of simpler conscious elements. There are also theories that propose consciousness is linked to quantum processes in the brain. Although these remain highly speculative, integrated information theory suggests that consciousness corresponds to the level of information integration within a system. Each of these theories offers a different perspective, but none has achieved universal acceptance. The diversity of explanations highlights how little agreement exists about the true nature of consciousness, reinforcing the idea that it remains one of the deepest unresolved mysteries. 5. The problem of subjective experience. One of the most challenging aspects of consciousness is subjective experience itself, often referred to as qualia. Qualia are the individual, personal experiences of sensations, such as the redness of red, the pain of a headache, or the taste of chocolate. These experiences cannot be fully communicated or measured from the outside. While we can describe the physical processes associated with seeing red, we cannot transmit the actual experience of redness to another person. This creates a fundamental gap between objective data and subjective reality. No scientific instrument can directly measure what it feels like to be conscious. This raises a profound question. If everything in the universe is ultimately physical, where do subjective experiences fit in? Are they simply illusions created by brain processes, or do they represent something more fundamental? The existence of qualia suggests that consciousness cannot be fully captured by external observation alone. It requires a first-person perspective, which science is not traditionally equipped to analyze. This makes consciousness fundamentally different from other scientific subjects, because it includes an internal dimension that cannot be externally accessed or verified in the same way. 6. Consciousness and the illusion of self. Another major aspect of the mystery is the sense of self. Most people feel that there is a stable I inside their mind, experiencing the world. However, neuroscience suggests that this sense of self may be a construction of the brain, rather than a fixed entity. The brain integrates sensory information, memories, and thoughts into a coherent narrative that creates the feeling of being a continuous self. But when examined closely, this sense of identity becomes less clear. Thoughts appear and disappear, emotions change, and perceptions shift constantly. There is no single point in the brain where the self can be located. In the end, consciousness remains one of the greatest mysteries ever faced by humanity. Despite incredible advances in neuroscience, psychology, and philosophy, no one can fully explain why we experience thoughts, emotions, and self-awareness in the way that we do. Every new discovery seems to answer one question while creating several more. Perhaps the mystery of consciousness is not just a scientific puzzle, but a reminder of how much there is still left to learn about ourselves and the universe. Until a definitive answer is found, consciousness will continue to inspire curiosity, debate, and wonder, challenging us to explore the deepest corners of the human mind. If you liked this video and would like to see more like it, please give it the thumbs up, leave a comment, and click the button to subscribe.